Once, in a time when people still lived in small villages and lent a hand to one another, when the baker baked bread for the whole town and the hunter brought home the hares, there was a fisherman who conceived a bold plan. He would catch the largest catfish the villagers had ever seen. He knew well that this would not be an easy undertaking, so he prepared himself with great care. He gathered berries and worms, collected the eggs of 1,000 quails, and carved the most exquisite lures from the finest wood to tempt the great fish. He adorned these lures with pearls that sparkled as though they held within them the light of 100 suns. The following morning, the fisherman went down to the river and cast out his nets. Between the nets he placed his gleaming lures. He was certain that this time he would land a magnificent catch. Patiently he stood upon the river bank and waited. He waited and waited, while the sun slowly climbed the sky, stretched itself at noon, and at last sank toward evening as though weary, yawning its way into sleep. Yet no catfish ever appeared. When he drew in his nets, he found only small fish, too small even to eat. Still, they had devoured his splendid lures. Disappointed, he threw the little fish back into the river and gathered his nets roughly together. The next day, the same thing happened, and the day after that as well. For at least 3 weeks this went on, and the fisherman could find no peace. He spent his nights brooding and wondering what new lure he might invent to entice the great catfish. His lures grew ever more elaborate and ever harder to obtain the materials for. He borrowed money from the village merchant in order to decorate them with larger and brighter pearls. The fisherman became increasingly gaunt. His beard grew long, and he lost a great deal of weight. While carving one of the lures, he even cut off the tip of his finger. Yet never once did a catfish enter his nets. One day, he decided to wander downstream and try his luck at another stretch of the river. There, in a shallow bend of the water, he encountered an old man who also seemed to be fishing. "To catch a catfish," said the old man, "you must give it what a catfish desires." He lifted his net from the water and pointed to the many small fish inside, the very kind the fisherman had so carelessly thrown away. "Does that mean you have caught the great catfish?" the fisherman asked. The old man laughed softly. "No," he said. "To feed small fish to a larger one would be cruel. I return them to the river. But tell me, do you truly believe there are still catfish living here? Catfish dwell only where they can spawn. In this river, the small fish devour their eggs." The fisherman stared in astonishment. "Then why do you take the fish from the water?" he asked. The old man gazed thoughtfully into the distance and replied, "I merely look to see whether among them there might be a young catfish, one I could raise." Confused, the fisherman returned home and began carving a new lure. Yet instead of using it to hunt catfish, he sold these lures to others, people who, it seemed, could make better use of them than he. To newcomers he told the tale of the great catfish he had once caught, only to lose again after a terrible struggle. As proof, he showed them his missing fingertip, or rather he raised the finger from which it was gone. That he had cut it off himself while carving the lures, he did not mention. Within a few years, many people began to make pilgrimages to the river, hoping that they too might one day catch the great catfish. The fisherman himself, ever since meeting the old man by the river, never again cast a net. Young men paid their last savings to learn from him how to polish the gemstones so that they would dazzle the small fish. None of them noticed that the fisherman's bucket was empty. nor that he had forgotten how to bait a hook with a worm at all. Yet this is not what the story was truly about.